Okay, let's review chapter 5 a little bit. The other day, we didn't get a lot done, just the test, and nobody made it under a C on the test. There was 170, and there was a B, and then there was 4 A's on the test, so that was pretty good, but it was a take-home test. Now, chapter 5 deals with property and selling of bonds and stock, capital assets, basically, and we reviewed these terms. I've asked you to be working on even problems. But anyway, we looked at this the other day. I have to use a 2018 PowerPoint because my 2019 with this book won't come up for some reason. I downloaded it, but it's not coming up. But anyway, your realized gain or loss is the amount realized minus the adjusted basis. Now, I think I put solutions on Moodle. We went through this the other day, the difference between realized gain and recognized gain. Now, you may have had a $20,000 gain, but only 5 of it is taxable for IRS. That's called recognized gain. So try to get a handle on the difference between realized and recognized. That's the amount actually reported to the IRS. Recognized gain is usually less or equal to realized gain. Realized gain can never be more than realized gain. Recognized cannot be more than realized. All right, losses on T and B property usually not deductible. Now, losses on business property is deductible. Losses on stocks and bonds is deductible. Losses on capital assets are deductible. Losses on personal property, such as your car or your home, are not deductible. Now, we looked at cost. Now, cost, we know if you buy a coal truck, and that coal truck costs $100,000. If sales tax is $3,000, we add that to your basis. So the cost is $103,000, and we depreciate the sales tax along with the $100,000. All right, gifts, we looked at those slightly, and gifts, you got to be in the right mind to make a gift. All right, and bequest is inheritance. My ex-wife currently is in a lawsuit with her sister. What happened, her daddy died. He had a will. He had all 4 of his kids in the will to share everything equal. Well, that was a good will, in my opinion. That's the way it should have been. But daddy got sick, and daddy got Alzheimer's, dementia, or whatever. And even the doctors put it on his report, and hospice and so on. Well, daddy died, and they found out that one sister had taken daddy to a lawyer and got everything put in her name. House, money, and 2 vehicles. Okay? So naturally, the other 3 didn't like what she did. And she caught him in a weak moment. And even hospice that day had visited him and said he had dementia. He was on medications that made his mind not think right. So they've had a preliminary hearing, and then they'll have a trial in November. And I look for the judge to overturn that second will, giving her everything. And she's probably already spent a lot of the money, and she'll have to dig up some money. And they'll own the house and the cars, probably in equal shares. So he was not in his right mind. You got to even be in your right mind to make a will. Okay? if you convert something from business to personal, it's the fair market value on the day you converted. All right, allocation of basis. We'll look at that. It don't hurt to look at these once again. Now, what does FIFO mean? I went over that before the test, really. All right, first in, first out. Now, this is not inventory like merchandise. It's stock. If you bought 10 shares at $2 and you bought 10 more shares at $8, you decide to sell 5 shares. What 5 shares did you sell? Those that cost $2. That's FIFO. First in, first out. Now, the gift basis gets pretty technical. Is fair market value of gift less than donor's basis? If yes, probably no. Well, let's see. Is fair market value gifted less than donor's basis? Probably no. Did the donor pay gift tax? Probably no. So then you have the donor's basis. So most of the time it's the donor's basis when you sell property that was given to you. But now it can be the fair market value on the date of the gift, and we'll try to earn that out in problems. Now, gift tax paid, fair market value at the time of gift, that could be, let's say, $50,000 minus the donor's adjusted basis. Let's say that's $40,000. Now, this is gift tax minus the annual exclusion. Gift tax, no. The gift, they don't say what that is, fair market value or donor's basis, but you'd minus the $14,000. Okay, I'd have to look and see what your new book, I think that's the fair market value minus the annual exclusion. But we'll clear that up, hopefully. Generally, donee's basis, that's you, the gift was given to you, is the fair market value at the date of the giver's. Now, that's a descendant. That is always long term, no matter how many days it is. And we talked about personal property to business property. And we talked about basket purchases. Now, to see if you remember that, on a basket purchase, you bought machine 1, 2, and 3. The fair market value was 20, 30, and 50. That could have been 3 trucks you bought at an auction. All right, but you paid $80,000. Now you know you can only credit cash for $80,000. But what would you debit machine 1 for? Got a calculator, Cole? Jonathan does. Clayton, you got a calculator? All right, now let me repeat this. All right, you bought 3 trucks for $80,000. 3 coal trucks or whatever there may be. This happens a lot in the coal industry. If somebody's selling out, you give them a blanket price or a basket price. Now, the fair market value of those coal trucks is 20, 30, and 50. But you only paid 80. You got a deal. You credit cash for 80. So what do I debit coal truck 1 for, and coal truck 2 and coal truck 3? How you going about it, Jonathan? All right, you add these three together and get 100. 20 over 100 is 20%. 20% of 80,000 is 16,000. 30 over 100 is 30%. 30% of 18,000 is 24,000. And then 50% of 80,000 is 40,000. Now, does 40, 16, and 24 add up to be 80? Yes, it does. And that's what you record the machines for. A stock dividend, we had that in a question somewhere the other day. A stock dividend does not give you any taxable gain. Stock rights we'll have to look at. If the fair market value of the rights is less than 15% of the fair market value of the stock, then bases of rights are zero. If you sell them for $50 a piece, you're taxed on $50. If the fair market value is more or equal to 15%, then the bases must be allocated between rights and stock. All property is a capital gain except inventory. We know merchandise inventory in a store is not capital. 1231 assets, some of that will be capital gain. Accounts receivable is not a capital asset. Supplies, letters, copyrights, music compositions. All right. Now, usually gain or loss is ordinary except. Now, I told you that section 1231 is a recapture depreciation. All right, scenario. You bought property for 20,000. You sold it for 16, but the depreciation was 6. Book value is 14. All right, if you sold it for 16,000, the book value is 14, you had a $2,000 ordinary gain. It has to be sold for more than the original price to have a capital gain. So if we sold this thing for 26,000, you would have a 12,000 gain. 6 of it would be recaptured depreciation, ordinary, and 6 of it would be capital gain. But we'll have to look at that in problems. We'll look at 1244 later. That's usually real estate. Now, I think these maximum rates stayed the same. Now, if you're in a zero bracket, you pay 0. But if you're in a 25% bracket, you pay only 15%. So usually you're paying 15% on your capital gains. And we looked at a Schedule D briefly the other day. We've got to net these short-term and long-term capital gains. Your limit to a $3,000 is usually your limit on capital losses. So we're going to work some of these and see where we go from there. And we'll use all right, so turn to your problems in Chapter 5. And I do have the right problems for this textbook. I want you to look at a couple of these. I want you to look at this one. It just simply shows you, and This is not going to let me write, I don't think. It won't let me write on these solutions for some reason. But anyway, looking at question 2, you bought a home, 150. You added a room, 20. Built in bookshelves, 1,200. Your base is 171,200. And maybe that's a rental house. You'll need to know that basis even for depreciation. All right, maybe it's a personal home. It's good to keep up with your basis. But now you can get up, golly, I think to a $500,000 gain on a personal home, not pay taxes on it. So a home is a good investment. If you ever get out of here and you get a good job, you want to buy a home, it's a good investment. Real estate usually is. All right, let's just looking at a couple of questions. Now, number 4, without reading the question, the amount realized is $8,000. Your basis was $50 a share. You got a long-term capital gain of $3,500. Now that would be using FIFO, I'm sure. I want you to go to question 8 if you would. Read that and be dreaming up a solution to it. Question 8, chapter 5. Okay, on this question, you have 2,000 shares of stock. Now you're going to get a stock dividend, some amount. Now your base in the stock is 38,880. During the year, they declare and pay a stock dividend. After the dividend, your basis for each share of stock is $18. Now, first off, divide the 38,880 by 2,000. 38,880 divided by 2,000 is how much? 1944. All right. Now your basis is how much? What's your basis now? Does it say 18?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So your basis went down from 1944 to 18. All right. Now let's look at some possible scenarios. All right. If you divide 18 into 38,880, that gives you 21. They're doing it a different way than I was going to do it by the dollars. They're going to do it by the shares. So obviously we got a 260 share dividend. All right, that's 160. Divide 160 by 2,000. That gives you 8% stock dividend. You're just working backwards. Now you have stock dividends. You'll have it in intermediate somewhere along the way, so on. All right. Now, other questions. If you had time to look over them, that's fine. But if not, we're going to start the problems. We got to look at that Schedule D also. The problems start with number 33. Now, 33 is an odd problem, but it's a simple problem. To now realize my suggested basis is long-term capital gain of 31,000. All right. Now, where did we get 94 plus 50 plus 75? What's the 94 plus 50 plus 75? You purchased for 250. All right. You got 94,000 cash. You got an automobile worth 50. Anyway, you got other assets worth these amounts. So you got a 31,000 long-term capital gain. Now, 32 you were supposed to work on, 34 at home. Okay. All right. Bases are probably received as a gift. Doug received a duplex as a gift from his uncle. The uncle's basis for the duplex and land is 90,000. At the time of the gift, the land and building have 14 and 80. 40 and 80. What does 40 and 80 add up to? All right. Donor's basis is 90. Fair market value is 120. Okay. Now, if we sold it for 120, we're going to have a gain of 30, and that's going to be long-term capital gain. But A, to determine gain, what is Doug's basis for the land? The donor's, whoa. Okay. Got to break that down. What is the basis for the land? Now, you're not going to sell the land without the building, or the building without the land, but they're asking this question. Now, do it like we did the machinery. Take the 40 and 80, and it gives you 120. 40 over 120 is a third. What's a third of 90? All right, third of 90 is 30. Okay. Now, let's see if we calculate that correctly. And we did. All right, the basis for the building would be 60. Okay, but C part. Will the base of the land and building be the same as in parts A and B for purposes of determining a loss? All right, so we want to take a loss. That means we sell it for less than 90,000. Yes, because the fair market value of the date of the gift is greater than the donor's basis. Now, if the fair market value, and I can't write on this, so we have to jot this down. Let's say the fair market value was 80,000 on the date of the gift, 80,000 altogether. And that's 10,000 less than the donor paid, right? Now we're going to sell it for 70,000. Which basis do we use? You'd use the fair market value. Will give you a smaller loss. Smaller loss helps IRS. Always think of taxes, which way helps IRS better. And that's the way it is a lot of times. Okay, so much for that problem. How about number 30? Well, we still need to look at 35. During the current year, Stan sells a tract of land for $800,000. The property was received as a gift from Maxine on 1995 when the property had a 310 fair market value. The taxable gift was $300,000 because the annual exclusion was 10. 1995, Maxine purchased the property on April the 12th for $110,000. At the time of the gift, Maxine paid gift tax of $12,000, In order to sell the property, Stan paid sales commission of 16. Got a lot of stuff there. Okay. We got a lot to iron out in this problem. Okay. It's not so bad. Let's look at it. A part. What is Stan's realized gain on the sale? All right. 800,000 minus the commission leaves 784. That makes sense. All right, but where did the basis come from? 118. Where did the 118 come from? All right. You're going to take part of that gift tax. And what was the 200,000 in the problem? What's the 200,000? What? There's got to be something. Got to be able to calculate it. What's the 300,000? The taxable gain was 300, right? So we got to 300. 200 just on 12,000 was the gift tax. Gift tax was 12. All right. Somebody find that formula in the book. Find the formula in the book. What is on the numerator is 200,000. What is the 200,000? Okay, have you found that formula in the book? It's on the first 2 or 3 pages. All right, did you find that formula code?
It's on page 8.
Page what?
5.
All right. Now look at this problem and apply it to that formula.
I think is this the formula?
Yeah. Fair market value time of the gift minus the donor's basis. Amount of the gift tax paid. All right. We know the gift tax paid was, if I'm looking at the right problem here, 12,000, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now look at up there, fair market value at the time of the gift was how much? All right. Fair market value at the time of the gift was how much? 310. But you take out that 10. Why do we take out the 10? Annual exclusion. Okay, now that's where, all right. Now, the 200 comes from what? Comes from 300 minus 100, or it comes from 310 minus 110. Okay, so it's 200 over 300 times 12 plus the 110. That gives you a base of 118. All right, do you see where all numbers came from now? 310 minus 110, or 300 minus 100, taking out that annual exclusion. Okay, the 310 taking out the annual exclusion. Okay, times 12. Evidently, that gives you 8. At 2/3 of 12,000, that is 8. And 8 adding on to 110 is 118. Okay, now look at the B part. How would your answer change, if at all, if the fair market value of the gift property was 85 as of the date of the gift? That makes a lot of difference. Then you take the 784, your realized amount, minus the donor's basis of 110, and you have a gain of 674,000. So this way, you got to take out some of the gift tax. This way, you don't. So really, if you take out that gift tax, 8,000 from if you add 8,000 to 667, you'll get 674. Just that gift tax difference. Okay, and you were supposed to look at number 36, sale of an asset received as a gift. All right, Bud received 200 shares of Georgia Corporation stock. All right, when the stock had a $45,000 fair market value. His uncle paid 30. Now, normally, you don't have to worry about gift tax. 45 minus 30, you pay taxes on 15,000 gain in a normal situation. But these problems don't throw normal situations at you too much. All right, but what did we sell it for? Number 36. The taxable gift was 45,000 because his uncle made another gift to Bud for 20 and used the annual exclusion. The uncle paid a gift tax of 1,500. Without considering the transaction below, Bud's AGI is 45. No other transaction involving capital gains. He sells the stock for 48,000. All right, he sells the stock for 48,000. What was the basis? 30. Now, how much gift tax did they pay? All right, you take these bases over the fair market value, you get to add on 1/3 of 1,500. 1/3 is 500. So your long-term capital gain is 17.5. That will increase your AGI 17.5. Now, if we sold it at a loss, 28,000. We take the 30,500 bases and we get a long-term capital loss of 2,500. You can take up to 3,000 a year, so you can take the whole 2,500. And C part, want to sell it for 42,000. Minus the basis gives you a long-term capital gain of 11.5. And it will increase your AGI 11.5. So here it looks like we sold it above the fair market value. And here we sold it below the fair market value. And here we sold it in between the two. All right. So that's what ABC was trying to bring out to you. All right, let's skip number 40 and 42 for the moment. Okay, no, let's go to number 42. From what I've already given you this period, read number 42 and work it out real quickly. Read 42 and try to come up with an answer. Somebody answer that question in a text. Okay, somebody's following me pretty good here. They said the difference between the $200,000 was the difference in gain. So, but anyway, but back to this problem, we've got 20 lots. She subdivides them, but she has how much in each lot? 2,000. Well, if she sells one lot for 6,000, she's got a 4 gain, right? But she sold 2 lots, so what is your sales price for 2 lots? 12. And you take out the selling expenses of how much? 480. All right, that leaves 11,520. And your basis is how much? 4,000? Huh?
2,000 for each lot.
No, but we sold 2 lots. All right, so let's see what we have. No, you're okay. You're okay on that one. But we're on 42, aren't we? Okay, we were on track, and we would have had that if we went on. 12,000 minus 480 minus 4 gives you a long-term capital gain of 7,520. What makes a long-term capital gain? She bought them 7 years ago. That's definitely long within a year and a day. Long-term capital gain is a year and a day. All right. Now she pays taxes on all of that, but she may only have to pay at a rate of 15%, even if she was in a 28% otherwise. Okay, now B part of that. Well, I guess there's a B part. How many lots did you sell next year? How many? 10. Now we know times 2,000 a lot. She had 20,000 in those lots. Now, what was the selling price of those lots? How much? All right, 60. What was the selling expense? All right, it should have been done the same old way. All right, take out the selling expense of 1,900. That left 58,100. See, here was the amount realized up here. Here's the same thing, the amount realized. Minus the basis of 20 gives a big gain of 38,100. Now, however, ordinary income, what is this 1,100? Did they mention 1,100 in the problem? 5% of 60,000, that's 5% of the selling price. 5% of 60,000 would be 3,000. And what was the 1,900? All right, that leaves 1,100. Now they're going to let you take another 1,100. This 5% must be the law. It must be the law that you can take 5% of the property, 3,000. You can take 3,000 as selling expense. Even though we only paid 1,900, she gets the other 1,100. So 3,000 from 3,000 from 40,000. If you didn't take this out, 40. 3 from 40 is 37. So you're going to take up to 5% selling expenses. If you don't exceed it, you still get to take it. So that's a pretty good deal there. All right. Number 44 is pretty easy. All right, look at A. You held that property for 15 months. That's long-term capital gain. B property you held for 20 months. That's long-term. And C you held for 20 months. Okay. Just add those three together. Add those three together. This is called netting. Number 44, add A, B, C together. What'd you get? 19. Okay. So you take gains and you subtract losses, and that's called netting. All right. But it asked you what was her marginal taxes, didn't it? Okay. Now the gain is 19,000. Net capital gain. All right. Okay. Your total capital gain is 19,000. You only pay 50% taxes on it, so you're going to pay $28.50. Now she might have been in a 30% tax rate, so it's saving her money, isn't it? Okay. At one time, all right, let's say you could buy some apartment buildings here. Let's say you could buy some apartment buildings around Bluefield for 200,000. You get maybe 4 or 5 apartment buildings. Now, at one time, you could take real lenient depreciation, and the owner rented those $400 a month, 5 apartments. 5 times 400 would be 2,000 a month. He got 24,000 a year net income. But at one time, he could take more depreciation than that. Let's say 30,000. So he had a net loss because of depreciation. But IRS streamlined those depreciation tables. But what I'm trying to get at, there are tax loopholes in taxes. This is a legal tax loophole if you could get gain. Now, let's say Donald Trump, he has a lot of stock. His gain may be $10 million a year. And he only pays 15% taxes. Or Bill Gates, this Microsoft stock, let's say, went up and he had 100 million gain on his Microsoft stock that he sold. He only pays 15 million in tax, 15% instead of 39. Okay, so it's sort of a loophole. Okay, now B part of this question: determine the increase in tax liability holding period for asset B is 8 months. If asset B was 8 months, it would be short term. It would be 100% taxable. All right, so look at that one. You'd only have, she's in a 35% bracket. Should pay 35% on the 7,000. And then on the other gain, should pay 15%. So she held this property for Only 8 months. She should have held it for 4 more in a day, shouldn't she? If she'd have held it for 4 more in a day, it'd have been long-term at 15%. Okay, now get a handle on what this next one is saying. Determine the increase in tax liability to holding periods are the same as in Part A, but Asset B is an antique clock. Asset B is $7,000. Now on antique stuff, your rate goes up to what? All right, this is given to you in your book. If it's an antique, your rate goes up to 28%. If it's not an antique, it's 15%. But now look at D part. Determine the increase in tax liability if her taxable income is $500,000. All right, then you're going above those rates, and everything is taxed at the 7 and the 12 is taxed at 20%. But still 20% is better than 500,000, should be in 39% tax bracket. But the two important brackets here that we'd have to worry about is the 15% and the 28%. Okay. All right, Clayton, how about doing number 45, and Jonathan and Cole try to do 46?
What is it?
Now, do you know where to get their tax rates at, Clayton? Oh, now you have the ebook, don't you? Now yours are inside your front cover. I wonder if that page is in the ebook.
Should be.
It should be the very first page.
It's not on the ebook.
Okay, let's don't worry about it. It should be.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the first page of the ebook is like the title.
All right. Okay, folks, let's look at Clayton since he can't calculate it. I guess that was number 45. Now, number 45 in the front of your book, Clayton, would be tax on 90,000 plus 15% of the 20. That would make the 110. So actually, they had 14,498 plus 3. Now, let's see how that would work. Head of household, you got to go to those rates in the front of the book. Take the tax of 110,000. All right, it looks like their tax on this part. Now, 15% of 20,000. How much is 15% of 20,000? This is all you need to know. 15% of 20,000 is your tax on your long-term capital gain of 3. Or tax anyway was going to be 14,498. So you add on 3. But now there was other parts to Clayton's, and let's scan it. B part. What did B part say? What is the amount of tax liability if the stock is held for 11 months? If it's held for 11 months, it's short-term capital gain, and it's all taxed equal. All right? So the tax goes up to 19,298 because go to your bracket, it'll be 12,698. All right? Plus 24% all over. We calculated that before. Bottom line, the tax goes up about 1,800. Okay. Okay, let me see something real quick. What is 24% minus 15? 9. 9% more taxes on $20,000. What is 9% of $20,000? 1,800. That's what her taxes increased. It increased the 9% from here to here. 9% of the 20,000 is 1,800. If you add 1,800 onto this, you get the answer. That's just a shortcut way of doing it. Now, Cole, yours, and Johnson, similar. Compute the tax on Mr. and Mrs. Sedlock. They follow joint return. Determine the increase in their tax liability for the following. They have a short-term capital gain of 20,000 and long-term capital gain of 12. You subtract and you get 12. You get 8,000 short-term capital gain. With 370,000, they're in a pretty good tax bracket, aren't they? All right. So 32% of 8,000. That's what their taxes will increase. Okay. But now B part, they have a long-term capital gain of 30 due to the sale of a collectible and long-term capital gain of 9 due to the sale of General Motors stock. That's 30 on a collectible, which is an antique. It's 28% bracket in it. On the sale of General Motors stock is 15% bracket. Okay, what they sell in C part that they're paying 28% tax on?
This is the same as part B, except they have a short-term capital loss of
4,400.
Yeah. So I think it's subtract 4,400 from 30,000.
Take that short-term loss from this gain, and that leaves that amount to be taxed at 28%. All right, and you're still paying 15% on General Motors. Bottom line is you pay 15% on stocks and bonds and land and so on, buildings, equipment, trucks. But if it's collectible, you pay up to 28. Now, however, If your tax bracket is 10%, you still only pay 10, not 28. You pay the lesser of the two. Okay? Now, if we were looking at the front of that book, go up there at the first one, single. If you only made $9,525, you're going to pay 10% no matter what. Then you're going to pay 12. Now, if you made over 38,700, you're going to pay 22. So it'd be better to have you're going to pay 10 or 12, but if you have capital gains, you only pay 15. So, all right, let's see what else we can sort out. All right, I want you to look at these four independent situations on number 48. And you take situation 1, Clayton, and 2, Co, and 3, Jonathan. And I'll take 4. Read it, see what it says.
What number is it? 47.
What?
47.
48. 48, situation 1. Okay, in 2015, Clayton, we start out with 40,000 adjusted gross income. Now we got a short-term capital gain and a loss. The difference is a net 5 loss. You got a long-term capital gain of 6 and a loss. The net is 1 gain. So what'd you end up with, Clayton, on situation 1? What amount of taxable income?
45,000.
Take a shot at it. Jonathan, how about situation 2?
58,000.
How about 3, Jonathan?
55,000.
All right. Let's see who was right. All right, Clayton, you got 45. Adjusted gross income after considering capital gains and losses. All right. Now, in the book, it was 40,000. 40,000. Net short-term capital loss and net long-term capital gain. Well, okay. If you take this gain, from that loss, how did you get 45, Clayton?
6,000 is the short-term capital gain minus 2,000, which is short-term capital loss. That's 4,000. You subtract the long-term gain, the long-term loss. That's 1,000. You add it together. Plus 45. Add the 5,000 plus 40,000, which is 45,000.
Right.
I think you're looking at 49 maybe. Because when you first said it, you said there was a loss of 5,000. That's number 49, not 48.
Oh, is that what I was looking at? Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay. 48. We had 40,000, 6 gain. So it give you a 2 gain, a 4 gain, and that gave you a 1 gain. These are all gains. What confused me? This is net short-term capital gain, and I was looking at the loss here, and that can't be. Okay, so we had 2 gains there, and we added on. Now, Cole, what did you say your answer was?
58,000.
All right, 58 is correct. On situation 2, all right, 2 gain, 5 loss. That means you had a 3 loss, $15,000 gain, and $4,000 loss. That means 11. All you gotta do is take 11 minus 3, I think, and you had 50 to start with. You had 8 to it, don't you? All right. And Jonathan, I believe you said 55 here, didn't you? 9? Okay. And same situation. Okay, it seems like all of you can net gains and losses. That's all that problem was, net gains and losses. Now, when you put it on Schedule D or the form, it does it for you. 49 is about the same thing. Now, you can carry over losses. We'll need to look at that additional. We're not going to look at corporate capital gains and losses. All right, we're going back and try to look at a right. All right. First off, let's look at number 39. Another concept. All right. Tally owns a house that has been living in for 8 years. She purchased the house for $245, and the fair market value today is only $2. She's moving into her friend's house and has decided to convert her house into rental property. Assume 20% of the property value is allocated to land. What is the basis of the house for depreciation? All right, what is 20% of the property value is allocated to land? What's 20% of 200,000? That'd be 40, but that's fair market value. All right, what's 20% of 245,000? That would be cost. All right. 20% of 200,000 is 40. 40 from 200,000, 160. So we depreciate 160. Land is 40, don't depreciate. Now B part, I guess 20%, no? What is B part? I better read it. If she claims depreciation of 15,000 and sells the property 6 years later for 260, 20% allocated to land. All right, what is 20% of 260? Subtract 80% is building. She sells it for 260, right? The base of your building was 108. But before, the base of your building was 80% of 245 minus depreciation. All right? So that left you 181. So her realized gain is 27 on the house. On the land, 20% of 260 is 52. And 20% of 245 is 49. 3,000. All right, there was no depreciation on land. So she had a gain of 27 and 3, which makes 30. All right, but C part, how much of the gain is due to depreciation? 15,000. Its fair market value is 290 when she converts the house to rental property instead of 200 was the base of the house for depreciation. Is that 80-20 again? %, 245 is 196. Now on the building, all right, this is something new, the 25% because it's on a building. And it been 1231 gain, it'd been 15%. It's on a building, so it's up to 25%. Okay, basis. And I think this problem was to let you know to separate land and building because land does not depreciate. Now we're going to try one on stock rights and we'll call it a day. Let's look at number 41. Martha owns 100 shares of Bland Corporation stock. She purchased the stock in '98 for $4,000. We know that's long term. On May of the current year, she receives non-taxable distribution of 100 stock rights. All right, did it say how many shares of stock? She bought 100, right? Now, do you all know what a stock right is? Okay. A stock right gives you the right to buy another share of stock. So it does. But it sets it at a certain price. So let's see if we can make a little more sense out of it. Any stock right has a $10 fair market value, and the fair market value of the common stock is $70. How much did she pay for that stock? Divide 4,000 by 100. She paid how much a share? 40. It's worth how much a share? 70. If she sold it today, forgetting everything else, she'd have a $30,000 gain, wouldn't she? Now, I want you to look at the basis allocated to the rights. Now, they said the fair market value of the rights was how much? $10 a share. 10 times 100 would be $1,000, wouldn't it? All right. The basis of the rights is 500. Okay. Now, we paid 4,000 for the stock, right? Okay. Now, where does the 8,000 come from? What? 1,000. Now, you know where the 1,000 come from? That's 100 rights times $10.
100 rights times the $70.
All right. $70 a share times 100, and then 100 rights times 10 is $8,000. Okay, both of them together is $8,000. But starting rights is only 1,000, so that's 1/8 of 4,000 is 500. That's how you allocate the basis to the right. Okay, Jonathan will send that right away. Okay, if she sells the stock rights for $1,080, determine the amount and character of the gain. Well, you can see that our basis in part A was 500, right? Subtract 500 from 1,080 and she has a $580 gain. Now, the holding period of the stock rights starts on when she bought the stock, 1998. Now, the basis of the 100 shares purchased by exercising the stock rights is 7,300. That's the 6,800 you gave for them, and plus the 500 basis in the rights. And that will start today. And in D part, I don't know what it was, but it looks like you had a sale again. What was D part? She does not elect to allocate basis to the stock rights, determine the amount and character of the gain if she sells the stock for 1,080. Well, if they have a zero basis, then you got $1,080 gain, don't you? Okay, that's a little bit about rights, but what happened here, real quickly, in this problem, trying to find, it gives you a deal. Now, stock was selling for $70 a share, right? She could have went out and bought another 100 shares for $7,000, but she bought them for how much? 68. It was her right to buy them as a price for a certain day. Okay, I guess go ahead and read chapter 6 and work a few more of these even problems between now and Tuesday. Now, I want you to try to start putting a Schedule D. You need to print off a Schedule D, and we're going to see if we can put it on a tax form. I want you to try problem 66, complete Schedule D. Problem 66 is just a Schedule D. You'll need to print it.
That's on chapter 5.
What?
Chapter 5.
Yeah, chapter 5, problem 66. Just like Route 66. Have any of you ever been on Route 66? You know anything about Route 66, Jonathan?
Straight line.
What?
It's a straight line.
It goes all the way across the country. Now, when I was out in Arizona, I went down to a little town that was on Route 66. And they have some of the old gas stations set up, the old pumps, and different things. It just goes way back in time. They have some nice little towns on Route 66. But you can travel it all the way across America, but I didn't take much of it. I took the interstates. Okay? Okay, y'all have a good weekend.